Let you make the noise. Got it? Okay. Well, welcome to RU 703. Good to have you all here tonight. Oh, man, getting tired here. It's good. How you doing? Good to see you. Okay. So we got a couple of people still coming in. I was a little bit late because they're doing the birthday party for my grandson in Georgia, and I was watching it on the Zoom call. But hopefully my wife will be back in a minute. So RU is just here to help us find, maintain, and grow our walk with the Lord, help us encourage one another, walking in the Lord. The RU program doesn't, it's not the program itself that fixes things. The program gets us into the Bible in every step, in every way. The challenge books, the second talk, first talk, third talk, all of that, all we do is get you into the Bible. And as we get into the Bible, God fixes the things in our life. So what RU does is, really what it is a discipleship program to help us learn how to walk today, how to take the next step in our life, And it's really neat because it's so easy to follow the program. I mean, we have to do the work. If we're not willing to put the effort in, then not much is going to come out of it. But if we'll put the effort into whatever God tells us to do, He returns manyfold over and above what we put in. And if we will just do what He asks us to do, He will take care of the things in our life. We don't have to do the taking care of. He does that for us. You're not going to. Let me get it for you. So it's because it's going to go. Teenagers have been in here, and you never know what happens when teenagers are in here. There you go. I just have to say this now anyway. We have the desks that you sit in and have the built-in arm. You know what I'm talking about? School desks for the kids. And one of our seniors was sitting in one of the desks. They're in lunch in this room over here. And I hear this commotion, and I look over there, and he's slowly going down to the floor, and the chair pieces are just like coming off of it. It took a good 30 seconds for it to go all the way down. And he's trying not to go down. In a sitting position, it's really hard to stand up with the thing in your lap. And it was the funniest thing in the world. It's kind of like these tables all of a sudden just go, whoop. But anyway, so RU. We're going to come back to RU. We got to be able to laugh because that's like medicine, all right? So RU, what we do is just to help us make good decisions, help us to do what we need to do in our life. And the 10 principles are awesome. They just guide us through decisions. I was talking to one of the kids in the class today. I teach health this year, which is really one of my favorite classes to teach because it's, number one, it's a Christian curriculum, so it doesn't get into any bizarre stuff. But, and there's just one student. It's just one student this year because it's just the one person that needs health, and it's a senior. And I've known them a long time, so I can say just about anything I just feel like saying in the teaching of it. I mean, I just can get places. And I was asking her today, how do you, what's the best way to make decisions? And she's like, oh, you base them on the Bible and this and this. And what I was trying to get her to see was the best time to make a decision is before you get to the decision point. And we've talked about this a lot. And the 10 principles is a set of principles that if we can go through our life and kind of hold up the things that we know are coming or have happened in the past and probably repeat and apply those to them before they're there and say, well, this is the decision I should make when that comes. And that's what I'm going to do. So if we lock that in now, when we can think about it, when we're not emotional or whatever, when the thing comes, we've got the decision made. And we're not scrambling to make the decision and probably make a bad decision. So that's one of the things that the 10 principles are so good for. Just use them. Sit down sometime and just think about things that go into your life, decisions you have to make, things you might face, and just look through the 10 principles and say, what does God say about that? What does He want me to do? And just kind of go through that, figure out what it is, and then when that thing comes up, you've got it done. It takes a lot of pressure off. And that's what God wants us to do in many ways. All right? 10 principles. Number 1, if God's against it, so am I. Number 2, every sin has its origin in our heart. Number 3, it's easier to keep the heart clean than to clean it after it's been defiled. Number 4, we cannot fight a fleshly appetite by indulging in it. Number 5, small compromises lead to great disasters. Number 6, those who do not love the Lord will not help you serve the Lord. Number 7, Our sinful habits do hurt those who follow us. Number 8, it's not possible to fight a fleshly temptation with a fleshly weapon. Number 9, we lose our freedom to choose when we give in to temptation. Our consequences are inevitable, incalculable, and up to God. And number 10, God balances guilt with blame. Accept the blame for your actions, and God will remove the guilt. And then Psalms 1, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. And I think I'm going to just get out of here and give the floor to Brother Jason. You have a principle today, or are you just teaching? Or
no principle.
No principle. All right. He has no principles. And if you get stuck, you just pull that out and use that. So, just joking with you, buddy. Ooh, stuff. Oh, I supposed to give him this. I lost myself. I'm here. Hi, Jason. How you doing, man? You probably could.
Oh.
Just put your shirt together like that.
There we go.
There you go.
Can you hear me? We good? All right. So good evening. How's everybody doing? Good. Good. Well, I got to be honest with you guys. I've had a rough day. My day was rough. Have y'all ever had a day where you just feel beat up, tore down? I think I felt like throwing in the towel a few times today. I mean, today whooped me. From the moment I got to the office, it was just one trial after the other. And before I knew it, I was in a funk. And it's hard to get out of it. It's hard to get out of it. And, I had to constantly remind myself, I had to constantly take my focus off each problem at hand. As the problem would come, you'd so easily get consumed with this thing, and then you're miserable. And I just had to remind myself of the things that I had to be grateful for. And I had to change my perspective a lot today. And the truth is, life is full of great difficulties and trials. Every day when you and I wake up, we enter into the battle zone. When you get out of that bed in the morning, get ready, because the war's coming. We're walking into battle every day. And a lot of days we might not realize it or see it. There's spiritual battle going on, but there's many days where it's front and center, like my day today. And, we've got a great adversary, the devil, who seeks to destroy us, to get us off track. And then we've got this other adversary in our life, and it's self, right? I think sometimes we can be our greatest problem. But a couple questions I want to start with tonight is, how do we respond to trials? How do you respond to trials when they come? Think about that. How do you react when things don't go your way? When something happens that you don't agree with, that you don't like, how do you react to that? Oftentimes I wonder to myself, why don't I pray more? Why don't I pray more when these trials come, when things don't go my way? Because I find myself quickly responding sometimes, or allowing it to consume me, or getting upset, and now I'm in a funk, or whatever. But so often I just skip right over prayer, and I try to take this thing on myself. I do it daily. It's so easy to try to take matters into our own hands. We think to ourselves, I got this, right? I can handle this. And, that's pride. Pride makes us think that we can handle things on our own with little help from God. We don't really believe the words of Jesus when he says, "For without me, you can do nothing." And tonight I just want to get in quickly for sake of time. 2 Chronicles chapter 20. I believe the story of Josaphat shows us how to respond to trials with great confidence. Okay, now this is not a confidence in self. This is not a confidence in our circumstances, but this is a confidence in the Almighty. Okay, and we can approach our trials with this kind of confidence. So Josaphat, 2 Chronicles chapter 20. I'm not going to read through it all. If I had more time, I would, but we're just going to bounce through some of these verses, and I'm just going to hit on a few because they've really ministered to me over the last few weeks. I've just kind of spent some time in this chapter, and I think there's so much to be said out of this chapter, but we're just going to pick at it a little bit, and I hope it'll be an encouragement to you tonight. But here in verses 1 and 2, Josaphat is shaken one morning, okay, when his intelligence come and they tell him some news. It says, "It came to pass that after this also, that the children of Moab and the children of Ammon, and with them other beside the Ammonites, came against Josaphat to battle. Then there came some that told Josaphat, saying, There comes a great multitude against thee from beyond the sea on this side, Syria. And behold, they be in Hazan Tamar, which is Engedi." So basically what they're telling him is there's a great enemy coalition about 15 miles south of Jerusalem. They're heading straight for Josaphat and his empire. Okay? Josaphat's life and his entire kingdom were in danger and on the brink of extinction. Okay? Talk about a reason to panic, right? I imagine the fear that must have set in when he was told this news. Have any of you all had some bad news? I'm sure we could all testify that we've gotten some bad news before, right? What would you do if you just got some terrible news that affected your future and maybe your life? Maybe you got some horrible news about your health. I can remember the time when my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and when I got that news, that was tragic. Okay? Maybe you lost your job. Maybe some of you in here are struggling financially and you don't know when or how you're going to be able to pay next month's bills. Maybe you lost somebody close to you, family member, a friend. Every one of us in here has had some bad news. Okay, life is full of storms, seasons of difficulty, and the truth of the matter is, and Pastor said this last night, listen, you are either in a storm right now or you just came out of a storm, and if neither of those, get ready because you're about to enter into a storm. Life is full of trials. And, I want to see what Josaphat did here. After he received this horrible news, I want to look and see what he did. It says in verse 3, "And Josaphat feared and set himself to seek the Lord and proclaimed a fast throughout all Judah." Man, I love this. Okay, so here we have Josaphat. He feared. And I want to look at his response to his fear. What a healthy response to fear. How often do we react to fear or our emotion? Oftentimes when we're faced with a fear, we immediately respond. Right? Now, it's okay to be fearful, but do we allow that fear to consume us? Do we allow that fear to take us down that path? And I want to look at how Joseph responded. It said, "And he set himself to seek the Lord." See, when trials come our way, when difficulty come, when the storms of life set in, we want to set ourselves to seek the Lord. That's the key. He could have responded out of anger toward God. He just instituted the number of reforms to bring the nation back to God back in chapter 19, and so he was now in this place where he was trying to do right, trying to serve God and put God in his right place, and then all of a sudden he gets this news. It would have been real easy for Josaphat to turn his back on God and say, "Are you kidding me? After all I just tried to do to get back on track and do what was right, and now this?" He could have easily turned his back on God. And how often do we, when difficulties come in our life, when things don't go our way, do we want to raise our fist up at God and say, "How dare you?" We can be so quick to blame our problems on God sometimes. And that would have been real easy for him to do here, right? But instead, his first reaction was to pray. I love that. His first reaction was to pray. And Judah gathered themselves together to ask help of the Lord. Even out of all the cities of Judah, they came to seek the Lord. The Bible says in 1 Peter 5:6, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. See, Jehoshaphat understood here that his greatest weapon here was not going to come from an army, his intelligence, or his circumstances. It was going to come from God. So he had to humble himself and seek the Lord and bring this to the Lord in prayer. And what a great picture of humility. Here you have the king, right? And he admitted his fear. He gathered everybody together and they sought the Lord. And I'm sure that was a beautiful sight to witness. But let's look in verse 5 through 7. It says, and Jehoshaphat stood in the congregation of Judah and Jerusalem and in the house of the Lord before the new court and said, O Lord God, our fathers, art not thou God in heaven, and rulest not thou over all the kingdoms of the heathen? And in thy hand is there not power and might, so that none is able to withstand thee? Verse 7, it says, art not thou our God, who did drive out the inhabitants of this land before thy people Israel, and gave it to thy seed of Abraham, thy friend forever? So here he begins to pray. They begin to seek the Lord in prayer, and I love how they are now looking back and remembering what the Lord has done. And I think oftentimes we so easily forget what God has done in our life, right? And we find ourselves in these trials, and when these storms come, and we immediately fold under the pressure, and we so quickly forget that we were just in a trial not long ago. And if we would just stop and look back and remember what God had already done, it would increase our faith, and it would change our perspective, and it would give us that might to keep on fighting. Sometimes we just got to stop and look back and remember what the Lord has done. I love that rear view illustration, right? When you're driving, we've got a rear view mirror that we've constantly got to glance back in because we want to know what's going on back there. But if we look too long, what's going to happen? You're going to wreck, right? But every now and then we've got to glance in that rear view. And I think that's good for the Christian life. That's good for life in general. Every now and then, take a glance back and remember, and you will see that the Lord has been good. So I love how they remember what the Lord has done. And so they're praying, and I'm going to skip down to verse 13, and it says, and all Judah stood before the Lord with their little ones, their wives, and their children. Wow. And so I'm just picturing this, and all the little ones, the children, the wives are all there while this is taking place. And I just think, what a testimony. What a testimony for these children to see. You know, all these strong men, the king, and they're all just seeking the Lord in prayer. They bring in their fear to God, and they're asking for his help. And well, I think about my children, and how do they see me respond to trials? When I'm walking through them storms of life, listen, our kids are always watching, okay? And if some of you might not have kids in here, guess what? Other people's children are watching. People are always watching. And what kind of testimony are we putting forth for our children? How do they see us respond to difficulty? How do they see us react when things don't go our way? And listen, our kids are going to emulate us. They're little sponges. And we gotta mind our testimony around our children. And we, you know, especially in those little years, it's the time that we can really lay that foundation and instill those principles in them, because they're going to pick up your mannerisms, the way you talk, the way you respond, the way you act. And so we want to be careful to guard our testimony for our children. But here we have all these small children and the wives being a part of this great thing. And I just thought, what a wonderful testimony there. And then down to verse 15. And he said, hearken ye all Judah, and ye inhabitants of Jerusalem, and thou King Jehoshaphat, thus saith the Lord unto you, be not afraid, nor dismayed by reason of great multitude, for the battle is not yours, but God's. I love that. The battle is not yours. Listen, if we could just remember that, right? The battle isn't ours. So often we want to take it on ourselves. I'm so guilty of that, right? I mean, I tried to fight the battle all day today by myself. But what a wonderful promise from God. He says the battle's not yours. It's mine. And if we could just understand that and let that resonate deep within our hearts and remember that when we face those trials, when the storms of life come, we need to seek the Lord. And we need to humble ourselves before the mighty hand of God that He may exalt us in due time. And when we can do that, He's the one who's going to give us the strength to persevere through difficult times. And, you know, I wrote a little, I don't know what you would call this. It says perspective plus praise over panic equals power. What do you call that? A formula? There you go. Perspective plus praise over panic equals power. There's great power in that, right? When we change our perspective, we take our focus off the problem, put it on the Lord, okay? And we praise Him. We remember what He's done. We lift Him up, okay? Over panic. If you do those two things over panic, it equals great power. There's great power there. And so I hope this will be a blessing to you. This has encouraged me. And these are things that we need to apply daily, sometimes hourly and minute by minute. But I hope that was encouragement to you guys. Thanks for letting me talk. Try to take off of it too.
You get a handout. You wear this, I'll get a handout. Just one of the things he said, I did chapel for the teens this week on Wednesday, and one of the things I said to him is a lot of what he just said, but when God tells me to do something, the battle is His. But you know what else is His? Because this is the thing that the responsibility is His too. The responsibility, it belongs to Him. If somebody comes up to me and says, well, why did you do that? Him. Talk to God, not me. The responsibility, it's not my responsibility. I did what He said to do, and He shoulders the responsibility. If I mess up and I'm not following God, the responsibility is mine, and I've got to answer for it and all that. But if I'm just doing what God told me to do, you know, anybody remember Lieutenant Calley, Vietnam War? It was kind of a mess. They went in. He was the commander of a platoon, and they went into a village and they massacred all the women and children. And said it was bad. It was really bad. And so somebody reported it, war crimes, all this other stuff. And his defense was, I had orders. And they said, you're right, but you should have said, you know, those aren't good orders. I'm not going to do that. That never happens with God. If He tells us to do something, He will accept the responsibility for what happens. And I don't have to worry about it, because I worry about things like that myself. So it's His battle, but it's also His responsibility. It just takes a load off of us. That's part of our freedom. All right, Quinn,